My first band was a 50s band, though, and that's really, I guess, how I really started getting into the whole 50s thing, you know, was that the first band I was in, we would play songs like Soldier Boy and At the Hop, you know, Danny and the Juniors, and I can remember there's a guitar solo on Rock Around the Clock. I was in this band with these people that were all really good, accomplished musicians at other instruments. And I played guitar on the Chuck Berry and all this stuff, but then on Rock Around the Clock, I'd have to give my guitar to this other brother that was normally the piano player, but he could play guitar really well too, and he could play that solo on Rock Around the Clock. And I can remember sitting off the side of the stage thinking, I'm going to learn that solo if it kills me, you know. I just couldn't stand it that somebody was up there playing my guitar and just ripping off that, because that's one of the best solos ever. And so eventually, I actually got that solo in the song. It's on our last, it's Martini Time has a song called Rock the Joint. It's a Bill Haley remake of some other, who else did Rock the Joint? I don't know, but the guy does the same solo on that deal. So
show us some of the solo.
That solo. Yeah, turn it up here. Let's see. Oh, I kind of missed it. Yeah, Bill Haley thing. I think I kind of messed it up. I sat there for hours and tried to figure that out, and he might be doing something quicker at the end. He does some kind of like a little, maybe at the end, but I'm not. I'm pretty sure he starts out with as close as I could get for that day. I don't know.
That quick descending thing, that's over the E chord?
Yeah, it's kind of over an E major scale as opposed to a dominant scale. That's at least the way I do it, you know. He might have done a little different. I'd been in a couple of rock bands after my high school bands and stuff like that, and I was kind of hanging around actually some artists, just web painters and stuff like that. And I noticed that a lot of artists had a specific style they would focus in on, you know, and I started, you know, so I'm thinking, wow, this guy always has popsicles in every one of his art, you know, like that's his deal is popsicles, you know, and I started thinking, you know, part of the way that you get to you know, part of the thing of art is that you have to focus very much on one little thing, you know. If you try to jump around and play one song classical, one song blues, you know, you just end up with a really bad record or something. But no, I'm not necessarily saying that. But I wanted to focus on something, and it was about that time in my life I was hanging around some record collector guys, and I really started feeling like this whole rockabilly thing was you know, blues was a little bit more, it was a little too odd, and the rockabilly thing, this was a little bit more rockin' type of a blues, and it just kind of fit right in. So I really dove really heavy into that, and, you know, started getting really into players like Cliff Gallup is still to this day one of my favorite players. He played with Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps, and then Scotty Moore, Elvis's first guitar player. And then a little bit of James Burton, Elvis's later guitar player too, because I learned a bunch of those licks, a bunch of the Elvis songs that we learned in my first band, my 50s band. I was learning James Burton licks, but because it was the later Elvis we'd learned the versions of on some of those songs. But
can you show us the difference between Cliff Gallup, Scotty Moore, and James Burton? I mean, in your mind, is there a definite difference?
Oh yeah, You know, Scotty Moore kind of took the Chet Atkins, Merle Travis thing into rock and roll. And Scotty may not have been as proficient at the finger picking, alternating bass thing, but it was definitely more of a thumb picking style. And of course, I don't really do the thumb picking thing. I do the what's called the Nashville claw. Well, at least I think it is, but it's where I finger pick, but I do my alternating bass holding the pick. And so like That's All Right Mama by it was Elvis's first record. Scotty Moore was kind of going. Anyway, it's more of a finger-picking thing, but Scotty did get into some great one-line stuff, too, but I don't know if I can remember all that, but I really got into the whole early Elvis Presley rockabilly stuff, and songs like Mystery Train. Just kind of had that alternating bass thing.
Cool.
So, you know, Scotty's style had a lot to do with that. And Cliff Gallup, he had a little bit of a finger-picking thing going on, but I don't think he quite got the alternating bass thing as much as Scotty did. But Cliff Gallup was so jazzy. I mean, and then he had a lot of great quirkiness. I think Cliff Gallup is really my favorite rockabilly player because he had the Scotty kind of finger picking thing down a little bit, or he had it down well enough to pull it off, but he was also doing so much other jazzy stuff, you know. And he had this crazy lick like let's see, I can't remember that song. Try that one again. Cliff Gallup was always doing this thing. And Cliff Gallup also, you know, you can hear him. He had two different ways of getting it. He had a tape delay, and you can hear when the tape delay, sometimes when it goes around, it'll kind of go a little quirky on him, like he'll go to hit this F note here, and it's either him playing the F and the E together, or it's that quirkiness of that tape delay all of a sudden gives him an E note, and he's hitting the F too. So. Cliff Gallup licks. I'm not sure if I can do all those. They're really fast. I'm trying to play a bunch of licks. I haven't played for years. One thing about Cliff Gallup, too, that I really like is that whenever the Gene Vincent would sing, Cliff Gallup could be back there playing some really crazy licks, and I don't know if he was hitting his volume on his guitar. I tend to think he just played softer, is what the deal was. And that's kind of a big thing with rockabilly, too, is that they would back down for the vocal parts, you know. And then whenever they said, you know, go cat go or whatever, then the drummer would go pop real loud, and the bass player would start slapping harder, and the guitar lead would come in. And it really made the song just take off, you know, and that's something that's really missing a lot in rock and roll, because now in rock and roll you have drummers that think, dude, I got to drive the band the whole time or it's going to fall apart. So the whole time they're just going boom, 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 like they might as well be a drum machine, you know. But you know, the early rock and roll, you know, had a lot more swing stuff to it, so they would, you know, kind of stir the soup, even though it might be a fast beat, you know. And that would be kind of a Cliff Gallup thing. Would be I don't really. He had a lot of echo, which I like. He kind of overused. He overused echo, and he overused, or according to certain snobs, they'll say he overused it. But to me, it was just a great style, you know, using the flaming bar a lot, you know. Anyway, let me see. Who else was I talking about here? What else was I talking about? Well, James Burton, he did a lot of the Telecaster type, and he'd do a lot of chicken pickup. You know, and then he would use a little bit more of the chicken picking kind of thing, where he's got this hand going too over here. But yeah, you know, at one time I just freaked out over early Elvis, and it was really cool because you know, I had musicians, guys who were really, you know, accomplished musicians, and they'd come over to my apartment, and I'd put on the Elvis Presley from the Sun Records, the early first Elvis, you know, and they knew that they really knew I was getting into rockabilly, but they didn't really know exactly what rockabilly was, you know. And I'd play the early Elvis stuff, and they'd go, well, who's that? I mean, God, that's the best rockabilly we've ever heard. I mean, it's Elvis Presley, and they're, oh, wow, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, we get it now. Now we realize why Elvis was such a big deal, you know. So, you know, the early Elvis is just incredible, you know. And then all that stuff on Sun Records, you know, Carl Perkins and Roy Orbison, Johnny Cash, or Jerry Lee Lewis is one of my heroes. I'm really into that stuff. But
how has that evolved into where you're at now, then?
Well, you know, I mean, all sorts of things, other things that influenced me, you know. I mean, I like all sorts of different things. So, but it's still there. It's still very prevalent, you know. I'm still going for the Cliff Gallup style echo a lot. You know, still going for you know, Jerry Lee Lewis type drum beat and kind of a rock and roll thing on some songs, and you know, we still got that in there, but, you know, we throw in all sorts of kinds of stuff within, but we try to keep it within the framework of rockabilly, like, you know, the artist with the popsicles, you know, it's still our deal, you know, but we'll try something different, but it's the popsicles will still be in there or something, I don't know.
There is a mixture of things that you do and have done over the years that's not just rockabilly. You've thrown some surf, throwing some jazzy,
even punk rock and stuff, and punk rock and, you know, more rock and rock stuff, you know, so go ahead.
How does all that blend together?
Well, you know, I mean, I'm not sure that it does, you know, but, you know, I usually like to think in terms of rhythms a lot, and so I'll, you know, hear a song that might, to some people, seem like a rockabilly song, but to me, you know, it might seem, you know, maybe almost a punk rock type of a song, or, you know, or vice versa, you know. And to me, punk rock and rockabilly are very, very tied together because it's two different types of music from two different eras, but it's both rock and roll. And I mean, it's in eras where, you know, we call Jefferson's Starship rock and roll, you know, and they're really just singing, you know, some flowery song about miracles, you know. It's not, you know, compared to Jerry Lee Lewis, it's not rock and roll. So, you know, I mean, and then punk rock had the original independent label. I mean, Rockabilly was the original independent label type garage band rock and roll, just like the punk rock movement was. So, you know, I mean, it's very similar like that. And so whenever I can kind of find a tie-in, you know, between the two, then and I look at rhythms a lot, you know, like we have a song called 400 Bucks. It's pretty much of a punk rock type of a thing. Kind of does this deal where it goes. Whoa. Can't play it, Dave. And like, so, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm not going to sit here and sing over this because I'll wake up everybody in the hotel because I'm screaming like a banshee on this song. But the drums behind this go, you know, and so if it sounds punk rock, you know, rock and roll, but, you know, it's the same beat as, come on, baby, a whole lot of shaking going on. Come on, baby, a whole lot of shaking going on. We ain't taking a whole lot of shaking going on, you know, and so it's a rock and roll beat, you know. So it's kind of funny, you know, I had this one girl ask me, so that song 400 Bucks, you don't play music like that anymore. And I said, well, the real answer to that question is we don't play the song 400 Bucks over and over and over again. You know, that's one song, you know. So, but that song has a different another section to it that's got more of the funk breakdown part to it, where the drums like, you know, kind of instead of just the straight ahead where I'm going. That lick. That's a lick I do quite a bit too. If you focus on the right hand here, I'm hitting up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. See what I'm doing on these two strings here? Kind of gives it a fuller sound, you know. Anyway, I do that on.
Did you come up with that picking pattern on your own, or is it something you picked up somewhere?
It's something, I don't know where I picked it up from, and I can't really put my finger on who exactly does that, but yeah, I kind of started picking up on it. You know, a lot of guitar players have done that. And then a lot of them have done it, but I try to focus a little more on getting a little tighter. Because when you go up, down, that last downstroke sets you up to go to this string for the downstroke. And that downstroke, you come back up and hit this, sets you up to go here. So you can, and sometimes if you think of a circle pattern a little bit, like doing this with your pick, it helps. Yeah, the good thing about this little picking pattern here is that with your left hand over here, you can be real lazy, you know. Hold it. It sounds like you're playing 1,000,000 miles an hour. Hey, I'm just holding this down. Well, one thing that I try to show guys that are wanting to get into the alternating bass thing, the way to learn to do it is to start off just on these strings. And then as you get proficient at doing this, A, E, with that middle E note thrown in there, then you kind of add. And you eventually can kind of get your speed up a little bit, but it starts off being kind of a vamp. Or that's a big percentage of what I do is just the alternating bass, or even just a drone bass, a little bit, just kind of keep that low E there. Anyway,
Spend a Night in the Box to me was, first of all, it seems, I didn't sit down and try to play it, but it sounded like a straight 12-bar more or less.
Yeah, 12-bar swing beat with. It's a swing with maybe could be considered a fast shuffle, but I don't know if that would be right. But yeah, it starts off with me doing a ninth chord thing here. Everybody should learn how to do this. You're a guitar player, you don't know how to do this. You should, but I also, right when I was doing that thing, I made a little mistake, which really is kind of a, this is a ninth chord here. That sometimes there's another song on our new CD where I play a different kind of way of this, and I think I just kind of hit on it there where you can kind of go, which is kind of a cool chord. There's another song called I'll Make Love where I do that same chord. It's up in E, though. Anyway, so what all this is you've got your root note, your E, here's the high note. Then you've got your major third and the minor third below it, so that gives it that jangly type of a sound. And probably one reason that I'm into finding chords like this jangly type of a sound is because of Cliff Gallup, doing this crazy, little funny parts of his solos, and I like those kind of odd, or just kind of it sounds like a mistake.
What are the two chords that come right after that?
So that's a diminished, like a E diminished chord. Then it's a B7 with a suspended fourth. So sometimes in a song I'll go the first time I hit the suspended fourth, and the second time I hit the regular B7. So. Yeah, there's this whole jazz line, You can, it's just a really standard riff for jazz guys to do. Like so. Kind of a turnaround way to end the song.
Cool.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to ask you about the intro to Night in the Box. You showed us that.
Okay. Whoa.
So this song is in the key of C?
Key of C, yep. And then on the solo on that one, hell, I don't think I could play that ever again like I did it on the record. I play a lot of the same licks, you know, just kind of jamming around, and they just kind of take what's best, you know.
In Big D Boogie, I heard some finger picking, I thought. But am I hearing an alternating bass, maybe octave?
Well, it's not.
Or is it more of the same kind of?
It's like an alternating bass. Yeah, it's a based on type of that type of thing. Because I'm going. The way I'm playing this, I can get this B string in there too. So I can do it with these two strings or these two. So this way the go this. I kind of do that like when we do the intro. I'm just doing these two strings together. There's two B strings or a B string with a B note on the G string. And then when I go to sing, I kind of go move it down. You know what I'm saying? It gets a little, if the sound takes it to the next one.
Slow that riff down, the finger picking part?
The finger picking part? Okay, sure. Yeah, it's just like a... Then I switch.
Picking the three low strings.
Yeah, I'm going. This pick is just going. Is all that's doing. So it's more like a little bit more of a walking bass line actually.
Other fingers, then with these two, you're picking the D string and the G string.
Yep. When I'm singing, when I there's another part where I use these two to pick the B string and the G string, and I'm holding down the B note on the G string so that they're both B notes. So. Then I go to move it up over the G and D string.
Cool. That's really cool.
Well, thanks.
Is that something in particular, that kind of finger picking pattern that's somewhere?
I don't know where I got that, you know. I mean, it's this boogie woogie John Lee Hooker type of a, you know, thing.
In the bedroom, it's a real honky-tonk, country-ish kind of thing.
You know.
So now that's a completely different groove, or to me anyway, from some of these other songs.
Right.
And country obviously had a big influence on rockabilly and eventually not on rock and roll. Can you just kind of run through to us that kind of a groove?
Yeah, well, I call that a country shuffle. So it's really the same beat as a regular kind of a shuffle kind of deal, which is a swing beat, but slower is what a shuffle is to me. But a country shuffle, and the way I do it on that song is a little bit starker, and I do a little finger picking thing where I go. getting that kind of... The second time I go, and then one time I go, these are all licks based on a B chord. Yeah, that one, I like the solo on that one too. Spent not too much time, but a little time figuring out something. I really like the way a lot of the, especially the old tellies, you can kind of do this trick. If you ever see Julia Brown does it a lot, but where you can go kind of the one deals. But I like to do it. I like to switch up, and I'll do it here at the whammy bar, like. I'll kind of go. So I don't know. Anyway. One thing about the Bigsby thing, I'm really into the Bigsby, obviously, but I think one of the reasons one of the things that they had in mind when they designed this little spring thing is to get kind of a steel guitar thing, and so I'll do this thing with my right hand where I'll. It's such a fast, quick up, pull up bend because it's the spring. It sounds like more like a pedal on a steel guitar as opposed to just going. You can do it with your fingers too. There's a lot of these tricks you can with. There's some things on the whammy bar you can do with your fingers instead of going. It's a little different. But you can kind of get a real kind of. See what I'm saying? Get a kind of a steel guitar thing going. I do that a lot.
How about on the intro to the bedroom? It's like da da da, isn't it? Like a
yeah. Wait. I'm not doing it right now. I guess it's too early in the day. There's another little trick you can do here that's it's like a bending thing where you on any chord, like this is for a B chord. It's another kind of pedal steel type of effect. Because these two high notes stay in the same place while this one's bending. And you can kind of go to get your E. Then it becomes an E chord. Just doing hammer-ons like that can kind of give you a little bit of a steely kind of twang. Anyway. Well, when I originally did that lick, I wanted to try, and I can do it. That little high. But it's really, it really, when the whole band's going and everything, it's one of those things. It's kind of a moot point, you know, to getting that little backbeat in there. So sometimes I don't even focus too hard on getting in there, especially when I'm singing. Now you're getting all the tricks of how I'm sloppy as shit. So. I'll kind of do a little slow down right there. And it's kind of odd because, you know, when I write this stuff, like when I wrote this song, the guitar part, I would probably be a lot more cleaner with it than I am now because, like I was getting back to what I was just saying, a lot of times I'm singing over this part. You got a bad reputation, that's what you got. A bad reputation, but I like it a lot. A bad rep. And so the main thing for me in there is to make sure that my vocal part is getting across. So I'm not over there making sure all these notes are loud and perfect and everybody can hear my beautiful little part. I'm back there just trying to play with the band quietly, you know. And, you know, same thing for all these chords here. And that way, when I go to the solo, or whatever I'm going to do, I've got more headroom. That's when I dig in, you know, to play loud, you know. You know, some of these solos I can't really do, but, you know, what you're talking about where I follow the chord changes, you know, so I'll be going. Then, you know, that's still kind of a D lick. Like, so I'll be going. Then it'll go to G, which when you switch from, you're playing in D major here, when you switch to the G chord, one of the main notes that changes is this note is no longer going to be an F sharp, it's going to be an F natural. So when I go to the G, then the F, and so I go this F lick. It's kind of at least get to the E because there's a little F E thing in there. So then the E leads you to the A chord. Then that leads you to the D chord. So. So that's kind of where I'm going. I'm going D. D, then to G, F, E, A, D. So, you know, when I'm trying to come up with a solo, I'm always thinking about changes. So, you know, that's kind of a jazzy thing, you know. I get a lot of that from kind of the jazz guys that I've listened to, you know. And then a lot of the rockabilly, Cliff Gallup does that very well. But, you know, a lot of the blues guys, you know, the blues guys would learn to play. I mean, you know, part of Eric Clapton's thing, the way he was so big, is he didn't try to change with the chords. You know, he would just play, and that's kind of led us to the whole rock thing, like maybe you were talking about, where a lot of the rock guys really just are playing over one chord, or, even if it's different chords, they're basically acting like they're playing over one chord. Well, that was kind of Clapton's deal, and it is kind of a blues deal, you're in A, then A, then you can still play the same list over it, and I think that kind of helped bring Clapton a little bit more of a bluesy, soulful feel that maybe some of the other English guys were going. They were always trying to play with the chord changes. But I'm not sure about all that. But there's a couple of little tricks that I do that as far as doing, I like to play off arpeggios as much as I can and off of the chord changes. And there's the circle of fifths thing or the circle of fourths, if you will. It's kind of two different ways to look at the same thing, but you've always got a tension and release chord in music, and if you're in the key of A, your number one tension chord is going to be that dominant chord there, the E chord, the five chord, and you can use that in your soloing too. And a lot of times, if I'm just on the key of E, just on A, even though I'm just over an A chord, I might use an E arpeggio to lead into that. In other words, instead of just going, I'll go. See what I'm saying? So that's like an E, A, instead of just going, staying in A. So you can do... or like E, A, so I like to think about a lot of that. Like the new album has a solo on a song called Sue Jack Daniels, where I'm kind of going all over the place. I'll start on E, go to A, D, Anyway, yeah, I think about changes a lot when I'm soloing, and it really will help open you up a bunch, to just try to think about the chord changes and where they're leading. There's another trick too, that a little thing that a little practice thing that I work on when I'm trying to work on my improvisation is you can switch the lines you're playing early. If you're in A and you're about to go to D, you don't just have to wait till that D chord comes up to start playing over that D chord. And it's a trick that helps move the music and helps get the listener, oh yeah, there it goes. There, it kind of helps bring the whole thing into a perspective. So I'll try to play like, here we are in A. And then, see, I was already going, I was already hit that D before I finally got to the D. So you can kind of go to the, that time I went to the D there, just on the beat. That time I went to the A scale before the A chord actually came in. So, if you can get it together, sometimes it's hard for me to, to get it together enough where my fingers know, hey, I'm getting ready to go to that 2-5 turnaround, go ahead and start going to that D. So I work on that, to try to get my mind and my fingers, together enough where I can think, well, I can go to that 2-5 turnaround real naturally, and even before it pops up,
When you start talking about rhythms, I want somebody to show us like different kinds of rhythms that you do, you know. And so you show this one that's more of a straight da-da-da-da-da rock rhythm, this with the finger picking, and then I was going to ask you about like a song like Sleeper Coach, which is more of a riff-based kind of rhythm.
Yeah, well now I would call that a rock and roll train beat, even though it's not. I have my own ways of looking at things. Like I call a rock and roll beat a beat that goes, you know, like I was going on earlier, which is the same as my song $400. Well, $400 is a punk rock song to most people, but it's just like a whole lot of shaking, or Sleeper Coach Driver. But on that one, I call that one a rock and roll train beat, because I had it in mind that the drums would be doing, instead of going like a hi-hat, like a it's more of a just stay on the snare drum where it goes, more of a train type of a thing. And so you know, to me it's funny because, you know, there's an awful lot of music critics that don't think of all that. They don't know about all this stuff. They're not musicians themselves, so they don't stop and think. And so they don't realize that my song $400 is the same beat as Sleeper Coach Driver, and they'll look at those two songs like a totally different world. Sleeper Coach being a truck driving type country song, and $400 being an angst-ridden punk rock song, you know. But, you know, I think about that stuff, and I think for my band that's one of the keys to my writing, too, is that I'll stop and I'll think, well, you know, dang, you know, we've got all these new songs, but we don't have one rock and roll beat yet. You know, we need at least 2 rock and roll beats, you know. So the rock and roll beats, are we going to use those for a more punk rock song or a country song or a more of a Jerry Lee Lewis rockabilly or what, you know. So, you know, and in that respect, that does kind of give an evenness to all of our albums. You know, people say, well, this album is really different. You know, and to me, you know, the song Lie Detector is a different song than the song Wiggle Stick. But in a lot of ways, to me, they're a lot the same because they're both in A. They're both that same moderate rock beat. And a moderate rock beat is where that kind of deal. And a swing beat is, you know, and so, you know, like we were just talking about Spend a Night in the Box, and Spend a Night in the Box, and I don't usually put those beats together on albums, but maybe I shouldn't worry about that too much, because it doesn't seem like people are always getting it. But Spend a Night in the Box is a swing beat, you know. Well, the next song after that on our new one, Big D Boogie Woogie that I just showed you, that's a swing beat too. Except it's a little bit more of a John Lee Hooker style boogie woogie swing. You know, and then I have some other songs that are more moderate swing beats, like maybe more of a shuffle, you know. You know, some beat like that. You know what I'm saying? Which is a swing beat as well, but not as fast in the tempo, more of a moderate.
Well,
so it's Sleeper Coach Driver. That was got kind of a bouncy, like when I start off with the little intro lick. Notice how I'm quiet. I played this part pretty quiet because when I'm singing, you know, I don't want to be over here going. And I think that's a lot of problems with a lot of bands today, you know, because you've got the lead guitar player guy, and he's so into his part. You know, I got to make sure my part sounds good. they don't stop and think that, hey, you're playing with a band, and when the lead singer comes in to sing, man, you could even not even be playing. It might sound better, but they're over there, so serious about getting their part to sound loud and everybody can hear their part good. And it's really a lot more important that every note of the lead singer's, that he's trying to do gets across. So, I kind of am able to do that since I am the guitar playing lead singer. So when I go to sing, I'll be playing this part, real quiet. Just trying to fit in with Scott, what he's doing on drums. And when I come in with this part, it makes it more there, Or when I come into the solo, that's another thing too. I don't like to hit a box to go to my solo. I'd rather do it with how strongly I'm playing. So, from that point of view, a lot of times when I'm playing rhythm guitar, I'm just barely kind of just making sure I'm trying to keep in time, but not too loud, Not good doing this loud, which is the problem with a lot of rock bands today. They think if they don't do that, it's not rocking anymore or something, and it's kind of an ego thing, really.
And then the last thing in Sleeper Coach, the solo used a whole bunch of what I consider kind of like classic rockabilly solo type moves. Mm-hmm. Do you play that solo more or less kind of the same each night? Yeah,
I play that one pretty much the same as on the CD there every night. So.
Can you show some of those things?
Well, okay, sure. Let's see. That one starts off with I kind of do this kind of do a truck sound, but I do it with my foot volume pedal. But so let me see. That's the first one. The second solo is.
That descending riff, it sounds like so much going on.
Yeah.
What are you doing in the regular?
Well, I'm trying to. Let's see if I can slow it down for you. I think that's more like it. I'm giving it kind of a little flat 9-1 thing in there.
The speed that we hear is you doing that kind of two-string thing on each set of two strings as you go up and as you go down?
I don't know, man.
Is that what I'm seeing or hearing?
I guess so. There's no explaining what I do sometimes. Yeah, if you learn to do this little lick here, actually, like that I was showing you, that can lead you to playing some fast things all over the scale. So, some of the stuff, it just goes by so fast, man. You try to slow it down, But, the way you learn to do stuff like that is, originally, I'd sit there and do it slow, That's the only way to really get it tight, It's a newer model. This is a reissued Gretsch White Falcon. It's my main guitar on stage right now. I've got other old Gretches and old Gibsons. About half of the songs on our new CD I did with what used to be my main guitar was a 53 Gibson 175. And I really love the P90 pickups, but just in our the old ones that I have, they sound great and they're perfect for the studio, but they're too buzzy for live. You know, certain gigs they'll be perfect, but we play so many different types of venues that, you know, you get into a place where the wiring's a little funky and they got a bunch of neon right by the stage, and it's too buzzy for the P90s. So when Gretsch came out with the reissues, I tried one, and the Filtertrons that they had on the new ones were so clear, were so much less buzz, and it still had the hollow body thing that I just decided to switch to the Gretsch reissues, and that was about in the early 90s, I guess. So yeah, and the one thing about these is that this is a replacement bridge. This isn't the stock bridge that came on these. And Gretsch makes them, and there are some aftermarket company makes them for Gretsch. And it's a little bit more sturdy, and I use this a bunch. And, you know, one thing about arch tops is, I don't know if you noticed here or not, but this is tape. This is just black duck or gaffer's tape. That the way you're really supposed to do this is you're supposed to use a little violin rosin, and you find the placement of the bridge, and then you kind of strobe it, and then you mark it with a pencil, and then you put a little violin rosin, because that won't damage your finish, and then you set it back down there. But the problem with that is that I play so hard in so many gigs, I rest my hand up here a lot, that I just decided and then once you put the rosin down, if you're going to have to change, and I don't know exactly why this is, but I just like to be able to move this thing. So I could take the tape up at any time and adjust this to make sure it's going to fret out good. You know, if I decide, okay, this is where I'll set it and this is where it's going to be good enough to strobe, and then I find out, wow, I really need it to be up about that much further, then if I've already, you know, kind of glued it down to the top, I've got to redo all that process. So since it's not really, this isn't a show guitar or anything, it's my working guitar, then I just tape it so I can just pull it up and, you know, screw with that anytime I want to. Because, you know, I get a lot of action through here with this deal because I use the Bigsby quite a bit. So
this bridge is not anchored to the guitar in any way?
Well, you know, it's an arch top. The arch top deal is that's the way they work. They're just kind of glued with violin rosin or some kind of a sticky substance down, and then the pressure of the strings will hold it into place. You know, but it's like for me and stuff, I just want to make sure that sucker doesn't move. And then at the same time, I want to have the flexibility to be able to rip it up and start all over in case, you know, I just feel like my intonation isn't quite right up here. Then I can adjust it better or move this to adjust to make sure it frets out good.
Can you explain the difference to you between the P90s and the Filtertrons?
Well, for one thing, the Filtertron is a humbucking pickup. So that was the big thing there. And, you know, I'm thinking about going back and using my Gibson more, or maybe another Gibson 175 with humbucking pickups. But, yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't know if I'll ever do that or not. But having a humbucking pickups makes it so where I don't get as much noise and line stuff. And, you know, I use several different kinds of, not several, but a couple of different effects here and there, and using the effects will give me even more buzz. You know, if I was just going to plug straight into an amp, you know, using the Gibson would be okay, but, you know, it's one of those deals where you got the lights or something in the room, and it's buzzing, then you move this way, you know, those deals, it drives me nuts, you know, so I'd rather not have to worry about that when I'm doing a gig.
So the P90s are a single coil.
But as far as the tone, the P90s, especially the old ones on my Gibson, there's something that's indescribably warm about them. I mean, it's just they just sound really good. And also, you know, on that guitar, I used it for quite a bit of this last session. It has flat wound. I put flat wound strings on it. And that's another thing, you know, Cliff Gallup used flat wound strings. A lot of my guitar heroes from the 50s, you know, used flat wound strings. You know, people don't realize that a lot when they're trying to get an authentic tone. But a lot of those older guys, you know, didn't have the round wound strings. But
What does that do for their sound?
Well, for one thing, like a Joe Mathis type of deal, he plays a lot of, you hear that little thing going on here? You don't get that with the... You don't get a lot... That's Hot Rod Lincoln, that's not Joe Mathis, but... You get this little extra scratch here. You don't get that with flat wounds. And so you can really... You're on this low E string, you can really fly, hit a lot of fast notes, a lot cleaner than having this buzz sound all the time. So, and then also sliding between chords and stuff. You get this noise. That's completely gone with flat wound strings. So it's kind of a cool trick for the studio.
All the time.
Well, because I'm not sure, I mean, I like to go for different stuff for different things, and, maybe live on a couple of things, it might be good to bring out flat wound strings, but there's other kind of rock and roll kind of things that I do in other songs during the set that flat wounds wouldn't quite work on, so they wouldn't work for me for all songs. If I'm going for quite a bit of a really Telecaster type of twang kind of thing, it might not work very good. Or if I'm going for a really hard rock thing, or sometimes I even do the thing, so that doesn't work with flat wound.
So what do you use on stage?
Well, I use Gretsch guitars through Fender. My main amp is a Fender Super Reverb that has a ton of reverb on it just about all the time, and then I run my echo through that. And then I have a Fender Vibro King that through that I run kind of a crazy echo. I don't even really use it very much. It's just one of these Boss delays that is an analog that will feed back into itself, so I can, just for a couple of novel effects here and there in the set, I'll hit it and it'll go woo woo. It's kind of like a theremin or something, But I run through basically that and a blues driver through the Vibro King, and that the blues driver Vibro King gives me kind of a little bit more of that crunch, a little bit more of a rock and roll sound compared to maybe more of a traditional rockabilly blues type thing I've got through the Super Reverb. And I just leave them on, the whole time. I don't switch between them or anything like that. They're just on the whole time. So.
How do you plug one guitar into two amps at the same time?
Well, there's different ways. For a while, I had a Lee Jackson, I think is what it's called, but I had a splitter box that I would plug into, take it straight. My rig right now, my guitar tech has me so wired up now. It's because I've gone wireless here in the last few months. So I go from the guitar to the wireless, but then I go back out to a volume pedal. Then I come from the volume pedal into a Chandler. That's my echo. And the Chandler echo has a dry out. So once I get to the Chandler echo, then that goes into my Super Reverb. So it's just the echo into the Fender amp. But then that dry out goes over to my other amp. So I'm using my echo, Chandler echo, as a splitter too. So it splits. I take that line out, and that power, is the line to my Vibro King, my blues driver Vibro King.
Is there a certain setting or range of settings that you seem to prefer with the Chandler?
Well, the Chandler, one thing that's cool about it is, like I was talking about the Cliff Gallup thing, they had the old tape echoes, and I have a bunch of old. I used to use Echoplexes with the tape echo, and I've got a tube one that's really cool. But they're noisy, and with the tape stops, and it's really hard. So I found this Chandler that has a little bit of a little bit of a thing. You can set it so where it's got that little bit of a warp, like a tape echo would have on the slapback sound. So it's really cool. It's warm like an analog or like a tape delay, but it's a digital effect. But it's I guess I like to set my echo as right around 120, and it's usually one or two slapbacks around 120 milliseconds is what I go for that. So,
does that affect the speed at which you need to play things?
Well, it does make it kind of funny because some songs, if the song is slower or faster, if you're in the studio, you can take those echo effects and match them up to the speed of the song better. When I'm playing live, I just throw that out the window. But, because basically I'm just going for that slapback tape delay sound that they used on all the stuff in the 50s and some of the 60s too. So, I've had sometimes it affects it. Sometimes it even masks what I'm doing. But I'm not really into this to show how fast I'm playing. I just want it to sound good. And so. Like I've got this song, I Can't Surf, or songs where I'm hitting double stop. And the echo kind of will cover that up a little bit, and it's to the point where I've got people saying, so when you're doing that, is that the echo, or are you hitting double stops? And I said, well, I'm hitting double stops, and there's echo. So.
And do you use any reverb at all?
A lot of reverb, a lot of spring reverb. That's one of the things I'm into, is Fender amps with the spring reverb. I like these amp things, too, at spring reverb. So,
where will you set the reverb at in a typical?
A lot. Just, I think on my super reverb, I set it on about 7. So, on my super reverb, everything's just on 10, master, volume, everything on 10, all the tones on 10, the reverb on about 7.
And on the Vibro King?
The Vibro King, I got the reverb up pretty hot on that one too. So, yeah, I don't know. I just love. I think the spring reverb thing, that whole surf guitar and the ventures. A lot of blues guys use it real well too. It's just it's a beautiful thing. I'm into it. And had a lot of sound men tell me, that's too much. You're overusing it, but, that sound man's probably got a lot of biases and stuff. He doesn't really realize what I'm going for, so.